Ladies and gentlemen, Kate Hoey.
Well, good evening all, and can I say thank you to all the organisers and all the sponsors, because we're seeing debates like this going on all over the country, rallies going on all over the country, and I think it's absolutely wonderful for democracy that we're actually debating an issue like this, and I'm particularly pleased, obviously, to be back home in Northern Ireland and debating it with you. I think it's important when we remember that not a single person in the United Kingdom ever had the chance to vote to go in to the common market as it was then back in 1973 when Ted Heath took us in. Not a single person. 1975, then 2 years later, there was a vote to see if we wanted to remain. So it's great to get that referendum. I'm one of the people who've campaigned for a long time to have a referendum, because I've seen the changes and you've seen the changes, and many of you here, although there's a lot of young people here who won't have voted, but many of you will have voted or not voted in 1975, and I think many of you thought you were voting for a common market and not voting for what has happened since, with the various treaties, treaty after treaty, changing the whole relationship, and with none of us having a say in whether those treaties were what we wanted. And indeed, when countries did vote and get a say and voted against, the European Union always found a way, a year or so later, to find another way of getting them to vote again, because they didn't vote the right way. So I hope that this time our referendum, we will be voting the right way, and I'm very keen to say how proud I am as a Labour Party member to follow in the footsteps of some great Labour figures, people who I had great admiration for and remember hearing speaking at party conferences, people like Barbara Castle, people like Peter Shore, people like Hugh Gateskill, and people like Tony Benn, who then warned what would happen if we joined the common market. And if they had been listened to then, I think we might be in a very different position now. Because then, of course, the Labour Party changed its view because of what was happening with the Thatcher government, and we got this idea that somehow Europe, the EU, was all about social Europe. It was going to improve trade union rights, it was going to improve workers' rights, it was going to give us all these rights that we didn't have and we couldn't have under our own government. And what we have seen is that whole social Europe completely disappear. You only need to look at what's happened in Greece to see what's happened to workers there. The collective bargaining stopped. We only need to look at the way that the multinationals are trying to bring wages down by being able to use the Court of Justice to change our own law. And of course you look at what's going to be happening with TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade Partnership, which if it actually gets through will really, really destroy the kind of democracy we have and disallow the ideas that we might actually want to take back control over some of our industries. So we can no longer say that that it is a social Europe. And I'm very pleased to see that even though the leadership of my party is still, along with the leaderships of all the other parties, the establishment, apart from UKIP, are actually calling for a Remain vote, I'm pleased that out across the country, the rank and file supporters of the Labour Party and those who particularly felt disillusioned and moved away are beginning to realise that now is their opportunity to get that vote. You see, what I want to say, first of all, I think the European Union is now dysfunctional. When we joined in 1973, 37% of the world's global GDP was in the EU from 9 countries. Now it's 22% with 28 countries, and it's shrinking literally as we speak. And yet the EU, of course, is the UK is the EU's single largest market. So they actually need us more than we need them. So all the scare stories that you would hear about being isolated, about not being able to trade, are just absolute nonsense. And can I say here and now that one of the most annoying and I think shocking scare stories which has come from various politicians, both on the Labour side, on the Conservative side, and indeed from the Irish government, is that if somehow we dared the people of the United Kingdom to vote to leave the European Union, that the peace process in Northern Ireland would be damaged. I think that is a shocking indictment of the people of Northern Ireland. So I do believe that we have nothing to fear about leaving. And I just want to say also that this idea that somehow 60% of Northern Ireland's exports go to the EU, that's including Great Britain, who is part of the EU. So the whole scare thing, actually 8% of what you manufacture and sell in from Northern Ireland goes to the EU. So the day after we left the EU, for a period anyway, nothing would change. But then all of that trade that we still have would go on. And of course, what we want to do, and I want to do, is to look outwards, to look internationally, to look at the growing markets, which we are constrained in making our own trade deals. If little Iceland, if Norway, if Switzerland can actually make their own trade deals with China and India, and we can only do it as part of this 28. We still haven't got a trade deal with India after spending all those years, because 28 countries, it is so difficult to get an agreement. So I believe very strongly that trade-wise we would be much, much better out. We were told that we would be isolated. We are the 5th largest economy. We have English spoken all over the world. We are members of the G20. We're members of all the international bodies. We are a member of the WTO, but we have to send somebody to represent us as part of the 28 countries. We'd get our full position back on the WTO if we left. And to say that we would be isolated, what confidence does that show in our own country? So I feel strongly that those are people who want to remain are doing our country down. They don't seem to have the confidence in it. And of course, I think if we desire to be that sovereign nation, and for me, the undercutting all of this, it's not just about trade, it's not just about safety and security and all those things. Fundamentally, it's actually, do we really desire to be an independent, sovereign country again? And what we have seen is more and more our democracy being overtaken and underridden by the European Union. And so when we pass laws in Parliament, we know that the European Court of Justice could overrule them. We can find that we cannot do things that we would want to do. I'm sure we'll discuss the steel industry, but much, much more could be done. And even if the government actually blocked with other countries certain things happening, that was at the time when it was probably the right thing to do. Now we can't take that decision back ourselves. We have to go back to the European Union. So I would say to everybody here tonight, don't feel that don't be taken in by some of these fear stories, because they are fear stories. There is a confidence in our country that we should be building on to be able to take our country back and to be able to make sure that we can become a country that will trade again with the rest of the world. It's very strange. The people who want to remain, to hear them talk is as if the EU is some kind of wonderful, vibrant, healthy, well-run institution which serves our national interests by promoting prosperity and peace. That is just such a grotesque delusion of what is going on in the European Union. It is dysfunctional. It's going to continue to be dysfunctional. And those countries that are in the Eurozone will actually are moving away from us. So we're not going to be leaving the EU. The EU is leaving us. And I hope that come on June the 23rd, the people of Northern Ireland will join with the majority, I hope, of the rest of the United Kingdom in voting to take our country back, to get control again, to be confident, to become an internationalist, looking outwards, not becoming a little Europeanist with 28 countries. Thank you.